Welcome to the Pipeline Podcast. Today is November 12th, and we're going to be talking about January 6th. We have some spicy developments. The biggest one is the internet sleuths believe they've identified the January 6th pipe bomber. It looks to be a former Capitol Police officer. And then we also have the BBC cutting a Trump clip during January 6th where they make it look like he's kind of calling for violence. And we're going to talk about that as well. But first, we're going to start with the Capitol Police officer that's suspected as being the DC pipe bomber. So I believe this was the first source I saw on it. And it's basically just a claim that a forensic software has identified this person as a 94% match to the January 5th DC pipe bomber, where it's just like the day before someone went and planted like two pipe bombs. I don't even know if they were real. I think they were fake pipe bombs or something like that. And people are saying that it was this U.S. Capitol Police officer. So we're going to look into that a lot. This was footage from January 5th, 2021 of this like person planting the pipe bombs. And this was kind of the article recently that totally broke the story like wide open by Blaze Media, which I'm not really familiar with. And it's from November 8th. And it talks about the computer program that produced a 94% match for the pipe bomb suspect, Shawnee Kerkhoff. A forensic analysis of a female former U.S. Capitol Police officer's gait is a 94 to 98% match to the unique stride of the long-sought January 6th pipe bomb suspect. And we're not going to go through this whole article, but I do encourage you to read it. But basically it's saying this Shawnee Rae Kerkhoff, and there's photos of her here. She's a former Capitol Police officer. She was also working during January 6th, like riot control. And they're saying that's this January 6th pipe bomber. And then also, let's look at the video a little bit real quick. So if that is her, she's like in a hoodie, walks up to the park bench, like plants a bomb. It looks like a very obvious pipe bomb. It has like a kitchen timer, like wired to a pipe. And I believe she plants two of them. So that's one of them by the bench. Here it's like a picture. It kind of is comparing her like posture and saying that it's similar. We just have another picture comparison here. And they're trying to say this is the same person, which like it could be. I feel like you would need stronger evidence to like prove that in court. You need like DNA evidence or something, or like a confession or a witness. But based off this, it is hard to tell. I will say the person looks to be the same height and it kind of walks the same. Yeah, like that's true, but that's not enough to like definitively say that. But we have some more circumstantial evidence we're going to go into. Oh yeah, here's pictures of the pipe bomb. So they look like really obviously like if someone was walking past that, they would be like, that's a pipe bomb. They're not very discreet and they're kind of just placed where someone walking by could see them. And like if someone really wanted to set up a pipe bomb, that would be a bad place to set them. And I don't even know if they were real or not. So it looks like it was U.S. Capitol Police that discovered a pipe bomb. At least one of them didn't even get called in by like a citizen or someone that found it. It looks like the police found it. So it is possible the police just planted it and then found it themselves to try to make like a shit story, to try to say that J6 was an insurrection or something, or to say they stopped a terrorist attack. Apparently like FBI agents were about to interview her or someone close to her, and they were told like, hey, you can't do that, like higher ups. The last thing to talk about in this article, which I would say is the main or the biggest smoking gun, I guess, is a CIA spokeswoman reached out to Blaze News after they published this article and clarified that the subject, which is Shawnee Rae Kerkhoff, worked in campus security and was never assigned to Director John Ratcliffe's personal security detail. So CIA spokesperson is saying, no, Kerkhoff didn't work for John Ratcliffe's personal security detail. She worked in campus security, but that doesn't mean just like a security guard at like a university. That means like a security guard that works at like a CIA facility. It's called Security Protective Service, and it functions as the CIA's campus security to protect personnel, facilities, and information. So basically, what happened is this Kerkhoff lady, after J6, she got a promotion to work for the CIA, but it's not technically like a CIA agent. It is an SPS, like security guard. She works for the SPS, not CIA technically. Here is kind of a fun one. It looks like it's an email to Thomas Massey, the congressman, where they're saying so and so from the FBI believes that there was gross misconduct or fraud in January 6th, specifically the pipe bombing case, and they want to look into it a little bit more. So maybe we'll get new information on this. The FBI obviously isn't the Capitol Police, but here's a little bit of what we know on the channel about the FBI's involvement with January 6th. It was the whole scandal where it's like 274 FBI agents were at January 6th, and that came out pretty recently. But basically, we have this leak report from the FBI, and it says that, yeah, there was 274 agents in DC at January 6th, and it gives some notes. So it says like 75 of them were just like staff that did like computer service and stuff like that. And then the rest of them responded to the Capitol grounds, inside and outside, the pipe bombs, in the red truck that was believed to contain explosives. And then I believe as well as confidential informants, I believe. But here it's worth noting because it cites the pipe bombs. So it looks like the FBI was responding to what also looks like an inside job with like these pipe bombs being planted. And who knows if the FBI was like aware of that or not. But the conspiracy theorists are saying the higher ups in the FBI were, and they kind of made sure the FBI didn't get too far, like the people that were looking into the pipe bombs. So it was just like a waste of the FBI's resources. But what it also could have been is like maybe the FBI was in on it a lot more. Who knows about that? We do have at least someone in the FBI saying that they're going to look into it. So that's good news. After January 6th, we also did see it was the Operation Arctic Frost. And we have done a video on this, so we're not going to talk about it too much, but it does add to the story. Like, there's a lot of new information coming out about just like who was there. Were people in the crowd starting shit on purpose to make it look worse than it actually was? And we've covered a lot of that on the channel. And this could be another instance of it, like the police kind of making it look like these January 6th protesters are terrorists that are planting pipe bombs. And here's just a wiki on Arctic Frost. It was like Jack Smith who was doing this investigation, and they were saying like all these Republican senators were trying to overturn the election, which like wasn't really true. And the Republican senators kind of respond and say like, the only reason you were investigating us is because we were Republican. Like there was no reason to investigate them. It was like a baseless investigation. But the guy Jack Smith believes he had enough evidence to at least get some kind of case going. But that never happened because before the investigation was finished, Trump became president again. So it's like, there's no point in doing an investigation now that he's president. He could just like pardon himself. And this goes into Shawnee Kerkhoff a little bit more. So another suspicious thing about her, she was the first person to testify in the very first January 6th court case. So what happened after January 6th is a lot of the people that went there got arrested because they were labeled insurrectionists. And in the very first case, on like the very first person that went to court over January 6th, she was the first witness to go up. So Kerkhoff is the government's first witness in its case against Guy Raffitte, the first Capitol riot defendant to go to trial. So she's the suspect in the pipe bomber case. She worked for the Capitol Police. After January 6th, she went on to work for the CIA's like security detail SPS. And she was also the first witness to testify against a January 6th protester. So it is all very suspicious. And then allegedly the FBI didn't look into her. They were instructed by like higher ups. And there was 274 FBI agents at January 6th. And then here's just some other stuff that was happening during that day that we haven't really covered on the channel. So apparently some cop testified that like someone cut this tarp but they have video of the police cutting the tarp. And it is weird. Who knows about exactly what this video, exactly why they're cutting the tarp in the video, and then who knows about the testimony. I haven't really followed that. But either way, this is January 6th, and why would we have the police cutting the tarp? Like, I just don't see the point of the police cutting the tarp. So it is weird. It's like, are they just trying to do that and say like, oh, look what the insurrectionists did? I don't know. Here we do have the person that was in charge of intelligence for the U.S. Capitol Police before and during J6 getting a promotion. She's now the chief of police of UC Berkeley. So, you know, it could be because she does a really good job, or it could be because for the same reason that the J6 pipe bomber, Shawnee Kerkhoff, got a promotion from Capitol Police Officer to the Security Protective Service to the CIA. It could be something like that. And that really is all the new stuff on the January 6th pipe bomber. But we have a fun video. This is Megyn Kelly talking about it a little bit. So the BBC clipped one of Trump's speeches, the speech he gave on January 6th, and they made it look basically like he was trying to call for violence. We are going to just watch her video for a second, and she talks about it. And then we have more sources that go into it a little bit. But it's not so much related to the January 6th pipe bomb, but it's like new stuff that's come out just that revolves around January 6th, which is so juicy.
The following clip.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you. And we fight. We fight like hell.
But Trump didn't, in fact, say this at all. The BBC spliced together two clips that took place 54 minutes apart. So let's go through it again.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you.
Now, see there, between Capitol and, that's a cut. Here's what Trump actually said.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
It's different. It wasn't until nearly an hour later that he then said the second part of the BBC's version.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we fight. We fight like hell.
So basically that's what the BBC did. They took a quote from like the beginning of Trump's speech and a quote from near the end, and they spliced them together to try to push like a fake narrative. And really the issue with it is it's the same kind of thing that NPR got defunded for. It's basically propaganda when it's state funded like that to kind of try to push like the wrong narrative. And that's the concerning part about it. So let's just listen and see if they have anything else to say, any other relevant information. And then we have another source on it.
Oh, so dishonest. And they cut out the part he said up front in that part, like that they chopped to butt it towards the end, where he said, and I want it to be peaceful and patriotic. We're going to go peacefully and patriotically. That didn't make the cut at all. That was removed to try to make him sound like he was trying to incite, INCITE, violence.
And it just kind of plays into, I mean, you've got the BBC trying to make January 6th look like an insurrection and say Trump tried to call for violence. You have the FBI allegedly not looking into the pipe bomber case as much as they should have, and having a lot of agents on the ground. You do have, I believe it was the FBI or Secret Service that actually killed one of the protesters. You also have potentially a U.S. Capitol Police officer that was the J6 pipe bomber. So that whole thing could have been a setup as well. And then you have after J6, a bunch of Republicans getting not wiretapped exactly, but getting preliminary toll analysis of their phones. So like you have the FBI investigating and getting cell phone data from these people, these Republicans that they suspected were trying to they were trying to overturn the election results, which was a pretty baseless claim to make. You also have this suspected January 6th pipe bomber that is the first one to testify against the January 6th Capitol riot defendant. And then it looks like some people on the BBC did take accountability for the spliced clip. So a couple people resigned, and this is worth watching. This video goes into it a little bit more.
Director General Tim Davie and new CEO Deborah Turness.
Tim Davie and Deborah Turness, they both resigned over it.
Both announced their resignations last night. Britain's public broadcaster allegedly edited a speech Trump made on January 6th of 2021 before protesters stormed the Capitol in Washington. Critics say the way the speech was edited was misleading and cut out a section where Trump said he wanted supporters to demonstrate peacefully.
The BBC has been institutionally biased for decades.
Yeah, and so this guy, he's talking about how biased the BBC is. In the US, we just went through the same issue with like NPR and PBS getting defunded for being biased. But in the UK, they kind of do things differently. I doubt the BBC will get defunded.
I well remember the Wilson report 2 decades ago, saying the BBC were not covering areas like Europe and immigration with any sense of impartiality. And you could, add on to that net zero, climate change, all their interpretation of the horrors that have happened in Gaza. And now, of course, the United States president. If I was the president of the United States of America, if I was the person making sure that the United Kingdom had security guarantees that meant that it could be defended, whereas on its own it would be helpless, and I'd been stitched up on the eve of a national election. I mean, people talk about election interference. What the BBC did was election interference.
Yeah, so he makes a really good point there. He's saying UK relies on security guarantees from the United States. Like, they would be a lot weaker as a country without them. And they're going to go ahead and allow their publicly funded like media outlet to, he calls it, interfere with the elections, to splice up that clip, make it look like Trump was calling for violence. I don't really know if it would be election interference, but it is like, it's like the media distortion. Like, you always got to try to go, if you see a news source clip a speech, you got to go watch the speech like in its entirety to actually see what they were saying. And that's kind of what happened here. And again, the BBC is state funded, so you basically have the government trying to tell the people that live in the UK like what to think. They're trying to push their narrative. It's a bias. And again, NPR got defunded for that. The last source here, it just talks about how UK is kind of going in a different direction with like online speech and like what they would consider hate speech, which like that's kind of something in the US that's like very well protected, like your freedom of speech. But it's not like that everywhere else in the world, and specifically in the UK. It's like a European government document that says the UK police make over 30 arrests per day for offensive online communications. And it says like the laws are pretty vague, so it criminalizes a lot of messages. And it cites that if a message could be considered annoying, inconvenient, or like give you anxiety, that it's actually criminalized, and that is kind of being abused by the UK police. And they said since 2023, 12,000 people have been arrested for it. That's basically taking away people's freedom of speech. And then it asks the EU, do they consider Brexit a contributing factor in the decline in free speech in the UK? And it might be interesting to think, like, is the UK government locking up free speech because they don't want the people to vote for something that they would deem detrimental, again, like Brexit? It also asks, what safeguards exist in EU law to prevent similar over-policing of speech in the member states, particularly when this results from employing vague legal terms and concepts? So I don't really care about this, but it's asking, like, how do you fix this? This law is vague. And then it asks about freedom of speech. The European Parliament actually responded to those questions. So I think it's important to kind of read their stance on how they feel about these 12,000 arrests for online like speech since 2023. This is kind of their response to all that. They say the Digital Services Act reinforces freedom of expression and of information, but it hasn't really said anything else yet. It also enhances access to information in the Union, including across borders. And they're saying that the Digital Service Act isn't actually what makes the online content illegal. That's other laws. Do want to talk about that. So it says that they're complying with the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, in that if they do limit freedom of expression, they respect the law when they do that. And it's that decision's only made if necessary. But that's kind of like a slippery slope, is what a lot of people are saying. But it doesn't really go into where's the line, like exactly what can't you say. It doesn't really go into that at all. And then the questions, they claim that if you say anything that could cause annoyance, inconvenience, or anxiety, then you could be criminally charged in the UK. And then meanwhile, you have the BBC trying to kind of push fake narratives, so it's suspicious. And then also like kind of fucked with J6 and made it look like J6 was more of an insurrection rather than just a protest. But I guess tell me what you think. As for the Shawnee Rae Kerkhoff, I think she's a close match, but you do need more evidence to really confirm it. And it looks like we're probably going to get more evidence. There's a lot of people looking into this January 6th thing. There's a lot of new stuff coming out. We kind of thought we'd do one J6 video and it'll be like a one and done type thing. And it looks like it's going to be something we're going to have to follow for a while, because now there's some new stuff that we need more clarity on. So if you like that kind of stuff, definitely subscribe to the channel, check out our other videos. And then we've also been following the UK a little bit more recently, and they kind of got dragged into this because, as you saw, the BBC edited a clip to make it look like Trump was calling for violence, which in the UK would be illegal, but not necessarily in the US. Anyway, definitely leave a comment. If you have anything to add, send us an email if you got any hot takes, and have a good night.